I was stunned, hesitatingly asking, "May I ask who you are?" But unexpectedly, the man's reaction was even stronger than mine. "Who are you? Why are you holding Claire's phone?" He called her Claire. This was a name that even half a year after marriage, in my most passionate moments, I didn't dare to call, but he called it so naturally. I calmed down and replied, "Hello, I am Claire's husband. May I ask if you have anything for her?" The guy on the other end seemed to hear something unbelievable. Just as I was about to say something else, the sound of water in the bathroom stopped. Claire, only wrapped in a bath towel, rushed out, snatching the phone from my hand. I remembered her cold gaze at that time, looking at me as if looking at a stranger. "Why did you touch my phone?" A man's sixth sense. Claire's gaze made me realize that man had an unusual relationship with her. That night, Claire didn't sleep at home, without explaining anything to me. After answering the phone, she drove away. Later, I learned from Claire's mother that that man's name was Walker, Claire's white moonlight whom she secretly admired in her youth. Walker was a wealthy and talented young man, a ray of light that could not be forgotten in Claire's gloomy youth. But because Claire was not successful in her youth, she missed him regretfully. After Walker went abroad to study, Claire gradually learned business from her father, becoming the business prodigy she is now. Walker had changed several girlfriends, but Claire remained single. People in their circle all said that even though Claire was married, as long as Walker made a phone call, Claire would abandon her groom to go find Walker. Unfortunately, I was the one used to prove the depth of the female lead's love in their romantic love story. Because I answered Walker's phone, Claire was angered. Her punishment for me was to go abroad to expand new business markets. For nearly a year, she didn't come back to see me at all. Claire was from a wealthy family. Even though it was a marriage arranged by parents, I still couldn't avoid falling in love with her. But this year-long silence also made me understand that between Claire and me, there was an unbridgeable chasm. This chasm had many factors: family background, knowledge, but the most influential factor was Walker. Knowing clearly that it was because of Walker that she deliberately distanced herself from me, but my insatiably greedy parents, using the excuse of the family business, constantly urged me to ask Claire for money. My mother said, "Mom knows you are now Claire's husband, already enjoying wealth and honor. But after all, that's still your wife's family. Only when your own family is strong can you be confident. If you quarrel with her, you also have a place to return to." During the time we didn't meet, I sent countless WeChat messages to Claire, sharing daily trivia, caring and asking about her well-being. If she was in a good mood, she would occasionally reply briefly with 1 or 2 sentences, but mostly it was silence. But because of my parents' requests, I could only brazenly call Claire. I was afraid of disturbing her rest, so I carefully calculated the time difference. It was her lunch break, but on my side, it was midnight. But when I carefully made my request, Claire on the other end only laughed coldly and used a mocking tone. "John, is it that as long as someone gives you money, you can be a son-in-law?" Hearing her words, I felt like I had fallen into an ice cellar. I looked at Claire sitting in the study, looking at the chat interface with Walker, her expression gloomy. In my heart, emotions were mixed, but the determination to scare her became even more firm. First, I approached her ear, puffing air at her ear. I watched the horror movies, where female ghosts and strange tales from a Chinese studio all did this to poor scholars sleeping in deserted temples. The truth proved that my method was indeed effective. Claire, who was originally in a daze, suddenly turned her head, unexpectedly meeting my eyes with hers, the ghost who was blowing air into her ear. She felt her heart thump, feeling inexplicably disturbed. Claire looked around, finding nothing unusual, then raised her hand to close the chat interface on the computer. She leaned tiredly back in the chair, rubbing her temples and sighing. I was a little confused. Walker was about to return, yet why did she look so mournful? Could it be that she felt impure after 5 years of marriage with me, not worthy of Walker anymore? The more I thought, the more resentful I became. Angrily, I clenched my fist and hit the bookcase behind her. It was just a subconscious action after getting angry, but unexpectedly, I knocked a book off the bookcase. That book had a hard cover, many pages, and was thick. Falling to the ground, it made a loud noise, startling both Claire and me. I was startled because I could actually touch objects. Claire was startled because why did the book fall on its own? Was it haunted? Claire and I simultaneously looked down at the ground. The photos clipped inside the book fell out. I looked closely at them. It was actually photos of me. Among them, there were even 1 or 2 group photos with Claire. Only then did I remember that before Claire's mother passed away, she had dragged Claire and me to a seaside trip. Under her insistence, Claire reluctantly took a few group photos with me. Claire's mother developed the photos, giving Claire and me each a set. Her intention was to have Claire use photo frames to frame them and bring them to the company office for display. My set. I framed them and placed them in the most conspicuous position. But I never expected Claire to hide these photos so carefully. Damn it. Could it be that seeing these photos made her uncomfortable? So, when Claire bent down to pick up those photos, I couldn't help but wave my hand again. As a result, the water cup on the desk was knocked over by me. I left Claire with a horrified expression and floated out of the window, back to my own house. If she felt unlucky seeing photos of me, then I would show her something even more unlucky. I, a ghost who had lost sleep staying up all night, wouldn't die of sleep deprivation. So, I lay prone on the sofa, letting my thoughts wander. Sure enough, even as a ghost, I couldn't escape the fate of overthinking late at night. In the 35th hour after my death, my brother sent me a message. I was really too bored, lying prone on the bed, thinking about what to do today. The phone in the bathroom rang again. I quickly floated in, wondering who was looking for me. As a result, as soon as I entered, I was startled by my own corpse. The corpse, devoid of any color of blood, soaked in the bathtub of bright red water. Even I myself felt a bit creepy and scary. I suddenly regretted choosing this way to die. On the phone screen was a WeChat message from my brother. He said, "Today, Claire brought New Year's goods to our house early in the morning and even asked if you were coming home. John, I am your brother. I won't harm you. Remarrying Claire is most beneficial for you and for our family. Don't be stubborn anymore." 5 minutes later, he sent another message. "What kind of person is Claire? She can bring New Year's goods to visit our home after divorce. John, if there's a step down, take it immediately." My brother was 3 years older than me. When I was young, I used to admire him very much. I thought he was outstanding and good at studying. When there were school art activities, he could always become the most eye-catching person. When I was young, I only thought my brother was very outstanding. A little older, I began to realize why my parents let my brother learn so many expensive extracurricular classes, but I could only learn the cheapest calligraphy and ink painting classes. And when the family business began to decline, the first thing to be stopped was my cheapest calligraphy and ink painting class. My parents' favoritism made me less admiring of my brother, and my brother seemed to very much enjoy my parents' favoritism, treating me like an errand-running younger brother. After I helped him deliver a love letter to the school bell, I was beaten up by a gang of thugs who liked the bell in an alley. He passed by, only glanced at me, and left alone. When I returned home injured, he told me to tell my parents not to mention that he asked me to deliver love letters for the bell. He went to the same university as me, but when I entered that school, he had already gone abroad to study. He was an outstanding graduate. When the school held its anniversary celebration, he was invited back to school to speak as an outstanding alumnus. Through the crowd, he saw me but didn't acknowledge me. Returning home, he used a somewhat disgusted tone to say to me, "John, can you dress a little more decently? If people find out your brother is so poor, my face will also be lost because of you." I smiled bitterly in my heart. Why do I dress so poorly? Don't they know? My suicide, he also had a share in it. The female ghost who jumped from the building in my apartment complex, whose soul was always trapped and unable to be reincarnated, told me that if no one worshipped later, she could only, like her, pick up garbage to eat. I thought about my complicated relationships, feeling that I should take a step earlier to befriend the female ghost. Otherwise, even garbage might not be available to eat. Hot food. Claire, that kind of cold-blooded and heartless person, if she knew that my suicide after divorce affected her ability to have children, she would probably dissect my bones. I and the female ghost sat on the rooftop, listening to her tell stories of the past few years in the apartment complex. She said, being a ghost also has its good points. Gossiping, you can sit in the front row of the apartment complex. Someone caught her husband cheating. She immediately sat on the wardrobe to watch, talking excitedly. I suddenly realized someone was appearing at my door. I quickly ran downstairs, again seeing Claire's ice-cold face. She stood at the door, knocked, and seeing no one answered, she called the management office, saying she was the homeowner and needed to unlock the door. The management office checked the information and told her that this house belonged to another owner, unrelated to her. When Claire's mother gave me this house, she had told me that this was premarital property, unrelated to Claire. At that time, I thought she was just coaxing me. I didn't expect her to think even more for me than my own parents. I suddenly missed this beautiful woman who had passed away 3 years ago. Claire said I and she were husband and wife, one family. The management office said, in that case, please ask your husband for the key. We really can't help. Claire was so angry she cursed loudly. But after all, a CEO is still a CEO. In this world, things she can't do are far fewer than us. She directly called a locksmith company to break the door. The management office stood by, worriedly trying to stop her. Claire took out her business card. If anything happens, find me. The management office took one look and immediately fell silent because the Lee Group could buy this entire apartment complex. Claire broke the lock. As soon as the door opened, a strong smell of blood rushed to the face. In the bathroom, there was still the sound of water dripping tick-tock. Claire and the management office looked at each other, both having a premonition. They rushed in, opening the bathroom door amidst the management office's scream. The matter of my suicide could no longer be hidden. I had imagined how my suicide would be discovered. In this scenario, the worst case was my body decomposing and stinking, causing neighbors to complain, the management office breaking down the door, discovering my body had decomposed to an unrecognizable state. Being discovered on the second day after suicide, for me, was considered a surprise. At least my body now, except for being a bit unsightly, wasn't too embarrassing. But I didn't expect Claire's reaction. First, she revealed an unbelievable expression, stunned for a long time. Even when the management office called the police, she didn't react. Then, her eyes turned red, and she burst into tears, kneeling down beside the bathtub, her hand trembling, reaching out, touching the horrifying wound on my wrist. Her eyes were red, as if unable to speak, seeming very distressed. I sat on the sink next to her, thinking, indeed, a CEO, this acting skill, going to the Oscars to get an award is no problem. The police arrived, sealing off the scene, and sent people to comfort the out-of-control Claire. After collecting the so-called evidence, they took my body away. At the police station, the police brought Claire and my family to give statements. Claire looked very dazed, but still managed to control her emotions, cooperating with the police to give her statement. After finishing, the police asked, "What was the deceased to you?" Claire said, "My husband." She paused, then added, "We just divorced 4 days ago." The police asked, "Reason for divorce?" Claire lowered her head, not knowing what she was thinking. After a long while, she opened her mouth, saying, "Lack of feelings." Hearing this, I laughed out loud. Lack of feelings? Lack of feelings is just her saying so? I recalled the day I proposed divorce. She was also working overtime in the study. I yawned and walked into the study. She lowered her head, working, not noticing me. I said, "Let's get divorced." Claire's hand typing on the keyboard froze, and she raised her head to look at me, her expression inscrutable. She stared at me for a long time. This time, "How much more money do you need?" This sentence was both hurtful and insulting. In her eyes, I was a man who married her for money. I was very determined to divorce, saying directly that because of lack of feelings, I wanted a divorce. I thought I had made myself very clear, but Claire resolutely disagreed. Her reason was, "You say divorce, and it's divorce? Last time you begged me to remarry, I was very busy, didn't have much time to play this childish game with you." I directly threw the divorce agreement in front of her. The 30-day consideration period for divorce would last until it expired. After proposing divorce to Claire, I moved to this small apartment. At the beginning of the divorce consideration period, Claire came to find me in a drunken state. Initially, I didn't want to open the door for her to come in, but she was drunk, talking nonsense and banging on the door. The neighbors couldn't stand it, so I had no choice but to let her into the house. A drunken, mature woman and me, a man too weak to trust a chicken, naturally, some things indescribable in words would happen. She called my name passionately while forcing herself on me. I looked at the ceiling in despair, thinking she must have mistaken me for Walker. 3 months after Claire's mother passed away, I continued to work as a regular employee in a company. That day, Claire suddenly appeared in our company. My heart skipped a beat, thinking something had happened. Asking a colleague next to me, I learned that the company was cooperating with Lee Group. Claire was now the mother of our company. In the past few years, I had worked diligently, my ability not bad. Therefore, when the boss and Claire went to inspect the resort project in the suburbs, I was also called along. Besides me, there were 4 to 5 other people who had to stay at the resort for one night. Claire appeared at the company. Seeing me, she only glanced at me coldly. That night, colleagues all went to bathe in the hot springs. I went for a walk alone in the resort, by the way, checking which places were not yet completed. At a corner, I met Claire, who was making a phone call. Claire also noticed me, pretending not to see me, and turned to leave. This way is not passable. Claire glanced at me, hung up the phone, and walked past me. As we brushed past each other, she said a sentence. In the company in the future, just pretend we don't know each other. How capable. The 2-day, one-night business trip ended. The boss and his assistant returned first, leaving only me and another female colleague. That night, it rained heavily. The female colleague, who was originally planning to return with me, said her boyfriend was nearby, wanting to go home with her boyfriend to visit her parents. So, she left with her boyfriend, leaving only me alone at the resort. Calling for a car, this place was a bit remote, plus it was raining, very difficult to get a car. Claire and her assistant passed by me. The assistant recognized me and came to greet me. Claire at this time was about to return to the city. If I opened my mouth, perhaps I could hitch a ride back, but thinking of Claire's mocking expression, I still decided to keep my dignity. Not wanting to make myself too embarrassed, I said, "I'm returning with a colleague. She's still packing." Claire looked at me with cold eyes. My heart skipped a beat. I lowered my head, not daring to look at her. After Claire left, I continued to wait painfully for a car. Finally, I got a car, but the driver said the road in front of the resort was under construction, the road muddy, he couldn't come in, telling me to walk a section myself. That section of road was not long, but it was a downhill slope. When I, wearing office attire, walked down, I fell and couldn't get up anymore. Intense pain came from my leg. Not even having time to realize what had happened, I only saw blood flowing with the rainwater. Waiting for the resort staff to call an ambulance, arriving at the hospital, I learned I had broken my leg. I couldn't accept the shock, calling Claire, but was hung up on. The next day, Claire's assistant came to the hospital to find me. Only then did I learn that the night before, Claire had gone to Walker's birthday party and gotten drunk, still not awake. Claire, after waking up, learning of my injury, also only came to the hospital to visit me once, then used the excuse of work to leave. The only thing she did was, later, not let me go to work anymore, giving me a black card, telling me to stay at home and be a stay-at-home husband, also giving me a private driver. That's right, breaking a leg only exchanged for economic compensation from her. Therefore, I didn't understand why Claire was now showing such distress. The autopsy results came out. I was identified as suicide. Claire directly collapsed to the ground, regardless of people passing by, crying bitterly. This wasn't just her acting. My parents and brother also rushed over, all revealing expressions of grief as if wanting to die. My mother grabbed the police officer's hand, crying, "How could this be? How could my son commit suicide? It must be for another reason." I sat on the chair next to them, looking at their grief-stricken appearance, unable to help but sigh. Good acting indeed. The ghost who died in a car accident next to me was also moved, glaring at me. "What are you saying? People's son died, already so painful." I crossed my legs, because the deceased is me. Before I committed suicide, a day before, they had chased me out of the house, not letting me come home for New Year's. A big tree, once it sways, will cause a big storm. Claire looked very distressed, making people look at her and immediately feel that she was a grieving wife who lost her beloved husband. She even requested to stay in the morgue with me. The forensic doctor was a bit embarrassed. Not to mention the forensic doctor, even I felt Claire was playing a morbid game, but the Lee family had money, could make a small family bankrupt in an instant. Therefore, the forensic doctor still let her in. My body had swollen from the cold. Compared to when soaking in the bathtub, it looked a bit more presentable. Claire knelt beside the platform where the body was placed, reaching out, stroking my face. "Why did you rather die than stay with me?" I found it funny. It was she who had pushed me away again and again. Claire stayed in the morgue with my body for one night. She lay prone on the platform, always holding my hand. I felt very uncomfortable, thinking, what's wrong with this forensic doctor? How could he be fascinated by beauty and let her in? I floated out, intending to make trouble for the forensic doctor, but heard the forensic doctor standing at the door say with regret, "Such a loving couple, yet separated by life and death." Someone spoke up. Let me go. Claire was asleep. I entered her dream to tease her. In the dream was the scene at my house in the study. Claire just opened the door and walked in, immediately seeing me in white standing by the window. First, I smiled gently, looking at her. You're back. Claire stood stunned at the door, her pupils trembling slightly. I was very satisfied, feeling she had been scared by me. After all, a recently deceased ex-husband suddenly appeared in a dream. Anyone would feel chills down their spine. I walked to the desk, continuing gently. I poured you hot milk already. Drink it after you're done working. Claire took a step forward, looking at me with an unbelievable expression. I was very complacent, thinking to myself, kid, scared you'll wet your pants, right? I walked in front of Claire, reaching out, helping her straighten her clothes. You work so hard. When you get home, you should rest properly. Otherwise, if you're too tired, I'll feel distressed. I was taller than her by a head. When helping her straighten her clothes, she couldn't see my face. I thought the time was ripe, immediately revealing a ghost face, raising my head, baring my teeth to scare her. But Claire wasn't scared at all. On the contrary, she directly hugged me, hugging me tightly, as if wanting to melt me into her flesh and blood. She buried her face in my neck, sobbing, John, don't leave me, okay? My head was full of question marks. What the hell is going on? Claire slept in the morgue for one night. Initially, I wanted to scare her, but as a result, I was scared by her instead. Women are really unpredictable. Clearly, when I was alive, she avoided me like the plague. Now that I was dead, she started to become infatuated instead. The next day, Claire's hair was disheveled, her eyes red and bloodshot. The assistant, seeing her like this, couldn't bear to let her run around handling my affairs herself. Claire returned to the apartment where I committed suicide, lying on my bed. I stood beside her, feeling uncomfortable because she hadn't taken off her socks before getting into bed. Claire didn't sleep, lying on my bed for half an hour, then began to examine every corner of my house. I didn't write a will because I felt a will was left for someone you cared about. I didn't have anyone to care about, but I had the habit of writing a diary. Claire found my diary. At that moment, I understood that the thing more terrifying than death was social exposure. I didn't write a diary every day, just occasionally wrote one to summarize. Therefore, this diary was considered to record my entire life, from 17 to 18 years old to now. I very much regretted not burning this diary when I committed suicide. I was utterly dejected, begging the female ghost who jumped from the building, who had high cultivation, to help me stop Claire, but the female ghost waved her hand, saying she was also helpless. I was very dejected. She said, I also want to see. After all, you've told me so many gossips. I watched the female ghost sit beside Claire, watching Claire read my diary. I cowered in the corner, gloomy, calculating. If I killed both of them, would I be beaten down to the 18th level of hell? The female ghost finished reading one entry, then raised her head to look at me, exclaiming, Oh, so your parents treated you so badly. I roughly knew what she had read, saying it was a diary, but it was more like my suicide plan. Every matter mentioned in it was a reason for my suicide. Why brother and sister both got to study abroad. Why when the family went bankrupt, living expenses were cut, but only mine were cut. Why the one who was scolded when doing wrong was always me. The thing I did on my 18th birthday was to go for a paternity test. The test results showed I was indeed my parents' child. But why did they treat me like this? In the summer of my 19th year, after showering at home, I wore shorts to get watermelon, encountering my brother's girlfriend. My brother's girlfriend harbored evil intentions towards me, pulling me into the room. Luckily, the neighbors heard the noise and rushed in. Otherwise, the consequences would have been dire. But when my family returned, I was slapped by my brother and scolded by my parents. They sided with that woman, saying I dressed scantily, deliberately seducing others. Clearly, I was the victim, but in their mouths, I became the troublemaker. Claire, after reading it, frowned tightly, flipping through a few pages. The female ghost beside her spoke up again. So you and her marry first, love later. There's this kind of thing? I often see it in novels. The female lead usually chases all the way to the funeral, then the male lead forgives the female lead. Finally, happily ever after. I twisted my mouth. Don't you have any other hobbies? In the diary, I wrote that because the family business encountered problems, marrying Claire could solve them. Because my brother already had a girlfriend, only I could marry. This marriage of me being a son-in-law for my family was like relying on a big tree. I needed to use my self-esteem to exchange for money, but I didn't feel pitiful. Because the person I married, Claire, was a very outstanding person. If not for this family relationship, perhaps in my whole life, I would never have known such a talented and beautiful woman. I very much tried to be a good husband. Initially, she didn't like me. I didn't care. She was also forced into marriage, probably needed time to accept me. I thought it was just a matter of time, just live together slowly, but I discovered that between me and her, there was an unbridgeable chasm. Because she was too outstanding, because I was not outstanding enough, because the person she liked was Walker. They had known each other since childhood. Walker was so outstanding. If not for my intervention, a person as outstanding as Claire should be with someone as talented and beautiful as Walker. Because of my family, I used to be very inferior, so inferior that when I discovered my legal wife Claire liked Walker and contacted him many times, I didn't even utter a word of questioning. I felt Claire didn't like me because I wasn't good enough. I felt my family didn't like me also because I wasn't outstanding enough. The harm caused by the original family had deeply rooted in my subconscious. I thought all the misfortunes I encountered were because of me. Lucky people use childhood to heal their whole lives. Unfortunate people use their whole lives to heal childhood. I was an unfortunate person. That's it. The police were looking for the cause of my suicide, but actually, the causes all lay in the trivial matters I had encountered, deeply rooted and tangled, not just complicated, occupying my entire life. Claire's coldness for 5 years, my parents' endless exploitation, and the email that Walker sent to me before I proposed divorce. Walker, the young master who was pampered from childhood, his tone in the email was also very arrogant. He said, "I'm returning home soon. Whose heart does Claire belong to? You probably know. If you don't want to be driven out of the house, I advise you to voluntarily not become an obstacle between me and Claire. If you feel economically insecure after divorce, I can give you $2 million. Claire will also pay you corresponding alimony." His attitude was very clear. "I've already given you a lot of face. Hope you don't be ignorant." My attitude was also very clear. I replied, "Don't people all give 500 million? Why is it reduced to you? Doing this is disrupting market order, not very good." Walker gritted his teeth angrily. "Indeed, you are just like Claire said. In your eyes, only money." Although he cursed, he still transferred money to me. I received the money, then proposed divorce to Claire. Really not because I loved money, but because I had used 5 years, still not making Claire moved by me. Now, her white moonlight Walker was about to return. How could I be his opponent? I didn't want to be driven out of the house, so I thought it was enough, so I stopped. Initially, I planned that after getting this money, I would start a new life after divorce. Then, on New Year's Eve, being chased out of the house by my parents, alone in the cold house, drinking wine to relieve sorrow. Not even having a person to talk to, negative emotions exploded, feeling that the taut string had snapped. Not even having a sliver of hope of survival, so I committed suicide. All of these, I had written in the diary. Claire, after reading it, collapsed to the ground. She cried while calling my name again and again. "John, why are you so stupid? I just didn't want you to be gossiped about by colleagues. That's why I told you to pretend we don't know each other. You said you were returning with a colleague, so I didn't offer you a ride. It's true, I went to Walker's birthday party, but the purpose was because of business partners in his birthday party. Drinking wine was also to discuss cooperation. After you were injured, I was also very remorseful, but at that time, the project was in the final stage. I really couldn't split myself. Waiting for me to finish being busy and come back. You already didn't want to mention this matter anymore. Me and Walker are also not as you think." Claire, a proud woman, cried bitterly in my room. The female ghost beside me also couldn't bear it anymore. "Look, how infatuated this woman is. Why don't you revive your soul?" I snorted coldly. "Have you ever seen crocodile tears?" The 7th day after my death was also the first 7-day memorial service. Claire didn't want to hold a funeral for me. The female ghost said it was just because Claire didn't want to accept the fact that I was dead. I disdained. Saying she doesn't want to hold a funeral sounds good. So what? Although no funeral was held, my parents came to the door to cry. They didn't go to the morgue to cry, but ran to Claire's face to cry. The miserly parents who had chased me out of the house on New Year's Eve were now crying more heartbrokenly than anyone else. This son of ours, from a young age, was sensible. We also tried our best to give him the best things, but he hadn't even graduated yet. Already married CEO Lee. Hadn't even had time to repay us. Now he's gone. We really can't bear it. In the days to come, we also don't know what to do. Before, he was still okay, personality always very resilient, but suddenly committed suicide after divorcing you. I think his suicide is all because of CEO Lee. I stood beside them, rolling my eyes, saying it like they treated me very well. This calculation, even I in the underworld could hear it. Claire's assistant also couldn't bear it anymore. You two said so much. Just want compensation, right? My mother raised her voice, demanding compensation, isn't it right? The assistant was about to argue back, but Claire laughed coldly. Compensation is something that should be done. Whoever owes whom should pay it clearly. I thought Claire said she wanted to give my parents a sum of compensation, telling them not to come and make trouble anymore. But that night, Claire instructed her assistant to withdraw all investment in the Gu family. The next day, which was also the 8th, Walker returned home, but Claire didn't go to pick up Walker as agreed. She stayed in the study, reading my diary, also taking out my phone to look everywhere. Too embarrassing. I wanted to die outright. Oh, no, that's not right. I was already dead. In my WeChat moments, there were many posts only I could see, all times when I couldn't bear it anymore in these years, too many, so I was too lazy to delete. Now being flipped through one by Claire, really too embarrassing. Claire slowly flipped through, her eyes turning red again. I sat cross-legged on her desk, snorting disdainfully. Feelings that come late are no different from leftover food at night. Walker dragged his suitcase back to Claire's house. As soon as he entered the door, he started to whine. Claire, why didn't you come to pick me up? Claire stood on the second-floor stairs, coldly looking at Walker. Very good. This is all the gaze she used to look at me with. Walker also noticed Claire's strangeness. The sweet smile on his face disappeared. Claire, what's wrong with you? Claire walked down from the second-floor stairs, regardless of the assistant still being there, and said to Walker, you always told me that we were impossible anymore, right? Walker's expression changed, perhaps feeling embarrassed with the assistant there. Claire, what do you mean by saying this? Claire said, it's true I used to like you, but you rejected me. I also guessed the reason. At that time, my father had an accident. Lee Group was declining, not worthy of you, a young master. Later, it's true I still had lingering feelings for you, but we were just friends. If you encountered difficulties looking for me, I would try my best to help you. Outside, rumors about us are so ambiguous. I, for your sake, didn't speak up to clarify. But why do you become more and more presumptuous? How could you brazenly send that email to John? Walker's face changed completely. He panicked, beginning to explain himself. But didn't you say you didn't like John? Whether I like him or not is irrelevant to you. Claire directly interrupted him. Me telling you I didn't like John is also a matter of 3 years ago. Claire and John getting married without feelings was arranged by my mother. I couldn't refuse. Therefore, initially, I couldn't accept him, also because of this, using work as an excuse to go abroad to avoid him. But 5 years of living together, even if I am an iceberg, I will melt. Claire said, just that I am not good at speaking, always hindered by so-called face, always not daring to face my heart, leading to this situation. The female ghost leaned on my shoulder, watching the excitement. Oh, she's confessing. I retorted, confessing what? Confessing to a ghost. Claire said, John was my husband. I could divorce him because of discord, because of lack of feelings, but the reason I divorced him cannot be because of you. After that, no matter how Walker pleaded, Claire didn't want to look at him again. In my consciousness, Claire had always liked Walker. Suddenly learning these things, I couldn't digest them, so I chose to avoid them. Claire had been staying at my apartment recently. I could only go with the female ghost to her rooftop garden. I only hoped these 30 days would pass quickly, so Reaper would come to take my soul away. On the nth day after my death, the female ghost came to tell me Claire had let someone beat up a girl, also using connections to make that girl go bankrupt. I asked her, how do you know? The female ghost said, I heard it from under her bed. Sure enough, the gossiping female ghost was always on the front lines. I floated to Claire's office, seeing Claire's assistant organizing documents. He was organizing while muttering. This girl is also really unlucky. Who told her to mess with our CEO's husband? Although so many years had passed, a gentleman's revenge, 10 years is not too late. I floated over to look at those documents. The person on them was my brother's ex-girlfriend. I only wrote in the diary that in my 19th year, I almost got assaulted by my brother's girlfriend. Unexpectedly, today, Claire had helped me get revenge. I pouted. Claire also had some use. The female ghost said, Claire, for you, didn't hesitate to turn against your family. Also using connections to make my sister's company go bankrupt, just because she inadvertently heard your sister say you were a burden. The female ghost said Claire no longer provided financial support to my family. My parents went crazy, running to Claire's company every day to make trouble, finally being arrested by Claire calling the police. The female ghost said, my brother's wife's family business used to also rely on Claire's help. Now Claire withdrew capital. The capital supply chain was broken. My brother then wanted to seduce Claire. As a result, being chased out by Claire, also being ridiculed. Even a hair of your younger brother is not as good. Even that brown-noser young master I mentioned in the diary, who always made things difficult for me when I interned, Claire had also snatched away his family's business contract. It could be said that all the people who had treated me badly that I mentioned in the diary, those who could be found by Claire had all found and taken revenge for me. I still said that sentence, feelings that come late are no different from leftover food. I had already endured all those sufferings. Now, revenge was no longer meaningful to me. Claire had been staying at my apartment, making me a wandering ghost with no home to return to. Therefore, I said to the female ghost, can you write something for me? Leave a message for Claire? The female ghost had been moved by what Claire had done, feeling I had also been moved. She said, when the bathroom has steam, you can write on the mirror. The female ghost was very excited. What do you want to write? Want to confess? Or tell her you only have 10+ days left before you can revive your soul. Tell her to wait for you. I can't write many words. You choose to write. I shook my head. No need to write many words. Just need to write 4 words is enough. 4 words? Which 4 words? Wait for me to revive my soul? Or, I also love you. I smiled. Right, get out of my house. After Claire finished showering, seeing the 4 words, get out of my house, on the mirror, she went crazy, screaming and yelling in the house all night. I found it annoying, so I ran to the riverside to watch people night fishing. The female ghost said I was heartless. Claire had done so much, yet I still couldn't forgive her. I said, heartless is all forged. 100 times of forging, I become steel. Do you know? The female ghost still enthusiastically brought me all kinds of news about Claire. I just watched the days pass, thinking when the 30 days passed, I would quickly reincarnate. As a result, that day, the female ghost told me Claire wanted to commit suicide by taking a lot of sleeping pills, luckily being rescued. I was not moved at all, even wanting to laugh to death. Dying is dying. What's so big deal about it? As if no one else can die? The female ghost had a different perspective, but have you thought about it? If Claire dies, she becomes a ghost, can come to find you then. I immediately ran to the hospital, invading Claire's dream, who was still in a coma. I appeared in her dream. Her eyes were red, immediately wanting to rush over to hug me. John, don't go. I raised my hand to signal her to stop. Keep your distance. What kind of intimacy? No status, no title, forbidden to touch me. Claire was stunned in place, still not understanding what was happening. Are you dead? I'm not dead. I said, I advise you not to die. Why tell me not to die? But you secretly died. I snorted coldly, because I didn't want to see you, so I died. You can't die. Claire smiled self-deprecatingly. That's right, you should hate me. I always ignored you, always didn't care about your feelings. I said, you know it's good. I'm not good at speaking, stubborn personality. Before, I always thought the person I liked was Walker. In my heart, there was someone else, but I married you. I didn't know how to face you, also didn't know how to face myself. Therefore, when this marriage began, I had always been avoiding it. Later, when my mother passed away, in the house, only you and me were left. I, because of my mother's passing, was dejected. It was you who always stayed by my side, taking care of me. The hot milk delivered late at night. No matter how late I came home, the lights in the house were always on. How many times you waited for me until you fell asleep on the sofa, but the food was still warm. Perhaps I had been moved for a long time, but I always didn't dare to face these things. When you proposed divorce to me, saying you had no feelings anymore, only then did I begin to feel scared. Because before, with marriage as shelter, I felt you wouldn't leave me, so I didn't know how to cherish. But when you resolutely proposed divorce to me, only then did I begin to feel scared. During the divorce consideration period, I also tried to restrain myself, thinking this was originally not a good marriage, and if it's really out of feelings, me letting you go, perhaps is the right choice. But after getting drunk, I still couldn't help but go find you. Initially, I thought even after divorce, I could still pursue you again. You felt marriage was your shackles, then I'll wait for you to be ready, then come back to my side. Because of my stupid actions, you died on New Year's Eve. You were very scared, right? Soaking in a cold bathtub like that, then leaving me. John, I had always not dared to face my feelings. Waiting until you left me. Only then did I realize I had been moved by you already. John, I'm sorry. I looked at the proud woman of the past, now kneeling in front of me, crying and sobbing. Saying I wasn't moved was false. In my heart, a sour feeling welled up, my nose tingling. Claire, I also once regarded you as my salvation. I said to her, I thought escaping from that hell-like family, marrying you, starting a new family, I would no longer encounter unhappy things. But the salvation I imagined, in reality, was an even deeper abyss. She said she had been moved by me, but in these 5 years, I had never felt the love she had for me. Claire knelt on the ground. She became so humble. I can compensate. I can compensate. I laughed out loud. Cannot compensate anymore. I'm already dead. Therefore, you must live well. Living with remorse for me is the only thing you can do to compensate me. Not waiting for her to open her mouth, I continued. Your mother treated me very well. She also loved you very much, so I don't want you to be hurt. She would be sad. Initially, I could revive my soul, but I refused, because I felt that although the previous things were misunderstandings, the harm had already been done. Compensation is also futile. I don't need your love anymore. On the 30th day after my death, Reaper returned. He held the book of life and death, looking at the female ghost beside me, revealing a headache expression. You said you jumped from the building for so long, still not willing to reincarnate. The female ghost retorted, being a ghost is so free and unrestrained. Actually, I knew the female ghost's resentment was too deep, so she couldn't reincarnate. After lecturing the female ghost, Reaper looked at me. 30 days are up. What is your decision? The female ghost chimed in. Surely it's reviving the soul, right? Novels, changing wives, crematorium, all like this, revive the soul, then be with the CEO. The story ends happily ever after. I laughed bitterly. Sister, but life is not a novel. Broken mirrors are hard to mend. Reaper, his eyes flashed. So your decision is? I smiled calmly. Of course, it's reincarnation. This life has been lived in vain by me. I want to start over. Reaper, also a person who had experienced many big things, didn't ask further. The female ghost beside me revealed a regretful expression, being glared at by Reaper, reading brain-dead novels all day. A love-stricken husband. Your husband won't come looking for you anymore. You quickly reincarnate for me. I bid farewell to the female ghost and stepped into reincarnation with Reaper. Reaper asked me, really no regrets? I said, that's right. I used 27 years to prove this life of mine was meaningless. Rarely can I be liberated. Why should I regret it? Reaper crossed out my name in the book of life and death, smiling and saying to me, then next life, I wish you have a family filled with love, also have someone who loves you. I smiled bitterly, hopefully so, if I deserve it. Reaper said, you are a good young man. Then farewell. Reaper stood in front of the cycle of reincarnation, watching me leave. This life, I had no more attachments. And dazzling light enveloped me. Then, I felt warmth, the sound of a beating heart. I was born again. Into a family filled with love. This life, my name is Peace. My parents are kind and honest people. They love me wholeheartedly, always giving me the best things. I have an older sister named Forrest. She loves me very much, always protecting me from the pranks of the boys in the neighborhood. My childhood was full of laughter and joy. I didn't have to worry about food and clothing, didn't have to endure the exploitation and coldness of family. I was well educated, able to develop my talents. At 18, I met her, the destined girl of my life. Her name is Gentle, beautiful, gentle, and with a sunny smile. We fell deeply in love, together spending the beautiful years of youth. After graduating from university, Gentle and I married. We had a perfect and happy married life. We built our careers together raising our well-behaved and lovely children. I no longer remember anything about my previous life, about the sufferings and hurts that John had to endure. I only know that this life, I am peace, a lucky and happy man. I have a loving family. I have a wonderful wife, have healthy children. I have everything that John had longed for. Perhaps this is the reward that Reaper gave me after the sufferings I had to endure in my previous life. I cherish this life, cherish those who love me. I will live well, live happily, so as not to fail the expectations of Reaper, and also to compensate for the misfortunes of John in his previous life.